Any good stories from the road?
Pipe up.
I wish we'd gotten to see a little bit more out of our punter.
I'm starting to puke.
It makes my stomach hurt.
I thought he was going to die.
I'm starting to throw up in my mouth a little bit.
He's on the probiotics.
Is Georgia playing the 1985 Bears this weekend or what?
A lot of Todd talk.
Rat poison proof.
They're mongeese.
We will not be hunted at the University of Georgia. I can promise you that. The hunting that we do will be done from us going the other direction.
All right, with no further ado, it's time for the Georgia Show. Welcome in, Palmer and Jake. Palmer, keep your shirt on. Keep your shirt on.
I just realized Jake and I were wearing the same sweatshirt, so I was going to take it off.
Who gives a rip?
It's comfy.
Find a Masters hat. Let's go. We are all in unison here on the Georgia Show. Georgia, SEC East champs yet again. That happens pretty often under Kirby Smart, it seems like. Now you got to move on from Mississippi State and finish that SEC road slate. Fellas, what are your big takeaways from that huge Rocky win in Stark Vegas?
Well, first of all, I want to make sure you guys can hear me because I had one of those little messages, your microphone has been disconnected thing pop up. And so I guess since Wes didn't say anything to cut me off, he can hear me. So that's not just my mouth moving.
Palmer, don't say anything.
It was, listen, man, it was another one of those things where, Georgia didn't play great. It didn't play clean. It didn't play, I don't know. There were times where it didn't feel like it played focused. It didn't coach focused at times. Won by 26 points. That's just kind of, it's, I don't know. Sometimes I think this team's capable of doing that, of kind of, because I don't know that Georgia played all that much better other than maybe, getting an earlier touchdown to maybe change the tone a little bit, all that much better against Mississippi State than it did against Missouri.
Jake, I'll say I haven't had a chance to rewatch the game, but one thing that I think about this game versus the Mizzou game, and you're right, that early touchdown was the difference in Georgia's momentum early in the game compared to playing Mizzou. I think that Stetson Bennett saw that Mizzou game. He had a lot of things thrown at him, and we all grade Stetson based on what he does on the field. But how about all the pre-snap checks that he does to get Georgia in the right play? And I think Mizzou really did fluster him, and I think he learned a little something from that. And you saw him have moments where he could still control the game against Mississippi State better than he did in Columbia.
Yeah,
I don't know that I'd go as far as Mizzou in terms of where Georgia played down to, because I think that we can all probably agree that was probably Georgia's worst game of the season. To me, this was more on the level of like a Florida. To play, I felt like they played all right, not as good as they did against South Carolina. If we're talking about games away from home, not as good as they did against Oregon or Tennessee in terms of clicking on all cylinders. But I felt like that they were not nearly as poor of a performance as it was against Mizzou. I felt like it was more Florida, where they played okay and then they made some mistakes and got burned for them there late in the first half. Obviously stuff to clean up, but I don't know that I would go as far as it was a Mizzou type effort.
Yeah, you spend a little more time on it, you might talk me out of it.
You sound easily convinced. Thanks for tuning in tonight, guys. Uncle Glenn, Matthew C. Onto the Bluegrass. That's right. Y'all hit subscribe if you don't already. This show really blew up last week thanks to that Tennessee game. We missed a lot of the Tennessee fans that were in here. I think we give them a lot of credit for helping the channel grow last week because they really kept the comment section lively, and I'm sure they'll be back now that Oregon lost and the Vols feel like they got a better shot to make the playoffs. Palmer, I spoke with Jake last night, but I want to get some of your thoughts now that you've had a chance to rest and react, that comment column that you write every week. What were your big glaring differences, I guess, between seeing it live and getting another crack at it?
Yeah, so by the time that I did that one, I hadn't gotten another crack at it. Seen a couple of highlights, but we were on the road, so I hadn't gotten to look into it as deep as I may have liked. So probably not my best rest or react.
Probably didn't get too much rest, I guess.
No, not too much rest either, considering we were driving back from Starkville to Tuscaloosa, hitting every pothole in the state of Mississippi. But I felt like I think that listening to some of the players after the game, you understood the importance of coming out and setting the tone early in that second half. They were not pleased with the way that they finished the first half. I'll touch on that a little bit more later in terms of my stocks. But they knew that, I mean, Kirby said it after the game. He was like, I can't remember the last time that we got the ball coming out of that we were receiving the ball out of the half, because feels like Georgia has been losing the toss and teams have deferred on them. Well, Georgia lost the toss and the Mississippi State took the ball to start the game. So Georgia got the ball. They had a chance to potentially try to double it up there. Didn't end up getting the last possession of the first half, as we saw with the punt and the touchdown. But to come out and Ladd McConkey give this team a spark the way that he did certainly stood out to me, because he had
that seems like a stock that's on the way up.
Right. Touchdown on 2 straight drives. And then on the one right after that, had a catch that took him down at the 1 yard line. So, Ladd certainly gave this team a boost. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he were to win SEC Player of the Week this week.
So how about Kirby at halftime challenging the team, saying that they needed to run the ball to control the game? And he said that the team that runs the ball better in the second half would win. I think that's a funny comparison to make, because Mississippi State doesn't really hang its hat on running the football. But Georgia had some trouble as a whole in the game. It really had to, say it a lot on here, really had to chop wood throughout the night to make a dent in that Mississippi State run stop defense there. But on that first drive out of the locker room, they run it twice. One right up the middle between the tackles, and one to Ladd McConkey, and he takes it 70 yards to the house.
Yeah, that was huge, just because that was, I said this after the game, Wes. That was Georgia's answer to that deluge there at the end of the first half. It's the first time Georgia really got a chance to answer to that after that punt return. And, that's one of the benefits is, having a chance at the 2-for-1. One of the big things of just having that chance is that the other team doesn't get it. There's only one team can have it, and Georgia had a chance at it, and they screwed up the first end of it. And I said it after the game. Apparently, Kirby said something similar. If you're going to keep going at it like that, if you're going to try to be aggressive in those situations, you're going to have it blow up in your face from time to time. It's just going to go wrong here and there. But that, and circling it back, that is the reason that 70-yard play was so big. And then, Georgia came back and got another one and kind of sort of put the game away. And then Mississippi State tried to hang around and be a little weird there. Got a turnover from Georgia, got a touchdown. Georgia punched him right back in the mouth 2 more times, put the game away again. So that was what you want to see from a team with championship DNA that travels, Kirby Smart says.
Yeah, DNA travels. That's for sure. So let's talk about the offensive line. Had a couple comments in our comment section about it. Look, Stacey Searles, I knew as soon as they came out a little flat, I knew Stacey Searles was going to be back on the fans' chopping block.
Oh, yeah.
Y'all can address that whether you want to or not. For me, you brought up that Missouri game, Jake. If there was a common thread between those 2 games, for me, it was the offensive line not coming out and playing at least, I don't want to say they didn't play inspired, but they didn't play as inspired as the home team's defensive front.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Mississippi State did some stuff to confuse Georgia up front and to kind of make them wrong. Like, you take some chances, you do some things in a game like this that you don't normally do. But I don't know, man. I mean, offensive line did a really nice job outside of one play, really protecting Stetson Bennett. Which was much better than it did against Missouri. I'll say that. The run game wasn't there consistently, but Georgia had its chances, I feel like, in the run game. Ultimately, the offensive line didn't play a great game. They're not going to play a great game every week. They had played 4 great games in a row coming into that Mississippi State game, and had a little bit of an off night, but still got it done.
if you look ahead to Kentucky, I don't know how much of the Wildcats you've gotten to see, but I would think that could be a concern for Dogs fans out there. Road game, O-line with another tough test. I know the Wildcats lost to Vandy, but maybe that's because they were looking ahead to Georgia. Do the Wildcats front give you any pause when you think about Georgia's O-line if they have a setback game like this one?
If Will Levis is Kentucky's quarterback, Georgia's going to win.
Maybe they should try him at defensive.
He's Will Levis. Will Levis is a bad quarterback.
Stock down on that.
Stock down. I'm sorry. Like I'm sure he's a great guy. Mayonnaise in the coffee, gross, but whatever. Eating banana peels, all right. You're tough. You're a bad man. He would listen. I would not want to run into Will Levis after making this comment out and about. But Will Levis is the most overrated quarterback I have ever heard of in my entire sports writing career. The most overrated there's ever been.
When you see him at SEC media days, he looks the part. He looks like an NFL QB. But on the field this year, you want to talk about our dog stocks, which we'll have later on. If we did cat stocks, he'd be way down. That is just outrageous. Jermaine Burton needs to reflect his career choices, Damian Stewart says. I think Will Levis needs to reflect on the mayonnaise in the coffee as one of his career choices for sure. One more note on the running game there from Matthew C. If it weren't for Ladd's and Milton's 2 long runs, could have been one of the worst rushing performances in the Kirby Smart era. Well, the worst one, I believe, had to have been the last time Georgia played Mississippi State.
Yeah. So, I mean, to a certain extent, there's probably something that Mississippi State does that makes it really hard to run the ball. Kirby talked about that after the game, said, if you look around our league, there's not that many teams that run the ball all that great. Because teams make it hard to run the ball. He said, he said he watched, caught a little bit of the Auburn Mississippi State game a week before after Georgia wrapped up with Tennessee, and said that he was impressed with the way Auburn was able to run the ball. And, told us, he said, look, I don't know the stats. I know that they've got some dudes up there on that front. We talked about Stetson's, second interception. Man, was that one heck of a play by that defensive lineman to get a hand on that ball. And to, kind of lucky the way that it just dropped into his hands. But they've got some really talented dudes up on that front. And Kirby said that. And so, I would say that there's probably something to the extent of Mississippi State good defending the run. I don't know the stats. He didn't know the stats, but the film doesn't lie, and they did a pretty good job stopping the run back in 2020, and they certainly did a good job last night as well.
Let's talk about these Dogs tight ends, guys, before we move on to the defense. And I could talk for hours about the defense. They are otherworldly yet again. And I think if you're still talking about the NFL draft guys, you're missing the point. It's over. It's November. This team is legit too. But I got to talk about these Dogs tight ends. Darnell and Brock catching a touchdown in the same game. Has that happened? I'm probably putting y'all on the spot.
SEC championship, because that was Darnell only caught one touchdown prior to last night, and it was the over the top pass against Alabama there.
Right.
It almost reminds me, Wes, of that easy button. You remember those Office Depot or whatever commercials?
Yep. That was easy button.
Yeah, and then they're like, well, hey, I can't find the other easy button. He goes, hey, use the easy button to find the easy button. And it's like, no, that might tear a hole in the universe. Georgia's tight ends, both of these dudes catching a touchdown in the same game, you might tear a hole in the universe. I mean, it might be something. I was worried there for a minute when I saw Darnell Washington standing right there wide open. When that ball touched his hands, I didn't know if it was gonna be like that Thanos Infinity Glove thing or whatever that was, gauntlet.
You thought you were about to just disappear off the face of the earth and start.
We probably
wouldn't be the first person that had happened to.
Yeah.
Uncle Glenn, yes, shout out to Peach County, Kyrus Jackson. That catch, that throw from Stetson. Look, that's quite the connection right there. And Stetson, as I said to start, we'll talk more about Stetson later on in the show. But his 2 picks, tough, yeah. but he did everything to get the Dogs in the right position, and I felt like they moved the ball on a pretty greedy defense, which is tough on the road in the SEC. This Georgia defense, guys, let's look at what they did last night. If not for the punt return touchdown right before half, the questionable play calling from Kirby Smart that cost Georgia a touchdown on special teams. If not for that, if not for Stetson's pick, setting them up on a short field, and what would y'all say, 50 to 60% Javon Bullard, Georgia's defense, again, doesn't give up a touchdown in the game.
Yeah. The defense, it's hard to put a finger on. I mean, yeah, they stop the run well and they cover well, but it's almost like you can see throughout games, like teams have a little success here and they have a little success there, but there is nothing ever a bread and butter. Nobody ever gets into really this kind of groove against this defense. It's Georgia's always kind of, leaning and adjusting and getting back in your way defensively. If you want to put it in like a college basketball term, like they're finding a way to stay in front at all times. And it's
Kirby
really,
likes those, no layups.
Yeah, it's really it's almost artistic in a way. Just watching them kind of throughout the game, like, oh, okay, Mississippi State hit them with a run on the edge. Well, they go back to it a couple plays later, and Georgia's right there. They've got the edge sealed up, or they take a shot on the mesh routes, and then Georgia jumps into a zone or matches up in such a way that they aren't able to to get the rubs off of that of those routes that come together. It's Georgia just kind of finds a way to stay in front defensively, and it's really.
Who would you credit that to? Do you feel like it is just as simple as saying Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann diagnose it on the spot, or in their huge staff? Georgia has a huge staff, and Kirby's a part of that too. I mean, what goes into these in-game diagnoses, I guess?
I think it's kind of two-pronged. I think number one, you've got a lot of really good eyeballs, looking at what's going on. But I think number two, you've got some styles that are coming together here, because one of the reasons I always knew that Kirby Smart wasn't just this Nick Saban figurehead, right? It wasn't just this, dude to stand out front and say that he coaches Nick Saban's defense and get all the credit, was because Will Muschamp had done the same thing for Nick Saban at LSU, and it was a different scheme. It was just a different entirely type deal. Like Will Muschamp was attack, zone blitz, four down lineman. Just always like that. And Kirby was always kind of more conservative, stop the run, build a wall at the line of scrimmage, make you one dimensional. So they were going about it in different ways. And I think that the conflating styles right there, I think Georgia has different ways to kind of throw water on the fire. They got buckets, then they got hoses throwing it on there, as opposed to just kind of having one or the other and having to go with it like that. I think that's a big part of why Georgia is able to adjust on the fly and stay with offenses as they try new things and try to open things up on this Georgia defense.
The pressure is constant. And if there was going to be a letdown for me coming off the Tennessee game, it was going to be, can Georgia still get after the quarterback and be as fiery as they were against Hendon Hooker? They didn't get the sacks on Rodgers Saturday night, but they got in his face a lot. Jalen Carter had a tackle for loss. I believe he had a sack.
He did.
So it wasn't as prevalent, but it is constant. It is always 1-2 guys beating somebody and shaking the quarterback out of the pocket.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about this before, and Jake said it several times during the game. They play really, really, really good red zone defense. It's a lot easier to defend when you don't have to defend 100 yards and 52 across. The amount of space that you're covering is just that much shorter, that much smaller. So they are incredibly talented and fast and physical, and they're able to, when you put that on, it's almost like playing on hockey rink there where you get them in a confined space, and it's a lot easier. The physicality and stuff, comes out a lot more prevalently. So in that red zone, they held them to 2 field goals there. We talked about how had it not been for the punt return and had not been for Stetson setting them up with a short field there, they were 2 for 2 in the first half in terms of red zone stops, and pretty strong all the way through. So yeah, I mean they do a really good job of playing red zone defense and doing what they're really good at in a short field, and it certainly comes through with on the scoreboard.
We have a debate going on in our comments section. William Smith, I got to give you a shout out. I give Uncle Glenn a comment. Matthew C. every time he's in here. Tomahawk Dog, one of our other regulars. Mutt, who's the Mutt? The Mutt guy is in here.
Mean Muggin' Mutt.
Mean Muggin' Mutt. Sorry, Mean Muggin' Mutt. He's probably mean mugging me right now for getting his name wrong. But William Smith says Georgia would finish 4th in the Big Ten East, not even up for debate. I love that y'all are settling that in the comment section. I'll let y'all handle that there. But Georgia is finishing 1st over at BreakingT.com. They've got the Ring Me shirt from Stetson Bennett. Bennett Bowers 22.
And you know what, Wes? One of the cool things about Breaking T is I think they've already shown us they're working on something else. Like you know it.
They're never resting on their laurels.
Yeah, you know it's coming. I mean, we started with these 4 NILTs right here. The Stetson Bennett one, the Brock Bowers one, the Chris Smith one, and the Darnell Washington. And then there have been 2 additions since the season began. Who knows what's coming? SEC championship game time. If Georgia wins that, 13-0, heading into the playoff. Some more stuff's coming in time for Christmas. Great Christmas gifts here. Unique Christmas gifts.
Yeah. So William Smith, if you want to share your address on one of our fans' DMs, I'm sure they'll be happy to send you some Georgia love up there in cold, miserable Big Ten country. Guys, let's chop some wood and actually do our dog stocks. We can still chop wood while we do dog stocks. I'm just ready to get ahead in the week and start talking about Kentucky clearly.
Big Kentucky game.
And I know that a lot of people want us to hear our thoughts on the SEC championship. I'm sure we'll sprinkle some in here and there, like some confetti sprinkles on a king cake. But we're going to focus on the dogs for a minute. My dog stock is the guy that I talked about a lot already today, Stetson Bennett. And I am just impressed. Someone on our board said this is the floor for Stetson. You get a game that maybe he makes you a little bit nervous, but he's still going to produce. He's still going to get the dogs in the right spot. He's going to make throws. That's a big stock up for me from last season. The throw he made to Kieras was big. The throws he made in the Tennessee game to Marcus Rosemy-Jacksaint. I mean, those are big-time throws that really only come with elite skill. And I'm not saying Stetson doesn't have it, but he had to build on it, or it comes with experience. And Stetson's got a lot of experience. He's seen a lot of things now. I'm not saying people can't fluster him. Mizzou did, but he gets better because of it. So my stock is up on Stetson Bennett. I don't take him for granted back there in the backfield for the Dogs.
Yeah, I was gonna go stock down for my dog stock on clock management there, but we talked about that already. So I am gonna go stock up here, make a little bit of an audible stock up on Mark Richt. In the heart of Georgia fans, heart of Florida State and Miami fans, trolling Florida. It was on ACC Huddle there last night on ACC Network after Florida State had beaten Syracuse. Was talking to Mike Norvell and said, "Coach, I've played at Miami, coached at Florida State, coached at Georgia, then coached at Miami. I know y'all don't play them this week, but I know who y'all play at the end of the season. Will you do me one favor and kick the Gators' ass?"
I love that. Gotta love that from Coach Richt. Glad to see him out and about, and had a little fundraiser deal last week too with a lot of former Dogs in Watkinsville, I believe. So good for that. Good to see that for Coach Richt.
Yeah, funny dude too. Kind of cool that he's still in his heart like that. And obviously he didn't do much, kicking of the Gators rear ends like he once done, but he did it a few times. Did it more than the guy before him and the guy before that. So
Yep.
kind of got a little something going. Listen, I got stock up on Mercedes-Benz Stadium because Georgia's about to play some games there. I got a feeling. If everything kind of goes like we expected to go, Georgia gets Kentucky, Georgia gets Georgia Tech, Georgia gets LSU in the SEC championship game. We were talking hypothetically about what we think that line will be. Let's stop here real quick. Wes, what do you think the line will be on Georgia?
I was thinking about that today. I was thinking somewhere around 15.
Yeah.
That was
kind of where I thought too. I ended up on the high side though because I went third and I had to pick a different number. What'd you say, Paul?
I said 15 was kind of the low and the floor of where we thought it would be. I had it at what
16 and a half.
16
yeah, I think I'm going to go 19. There's something, I know it's a lot of points, but for some reason, I don't know. I think this is a tough matchup for LSU. We'll get into it later. But again, the SEC championship game. Georgia played Mercedes-Benz Stadium to start the season. They're going to play the game 13 in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. If they win, they're going to play game 14 in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I mean, almost no doubt about it. Game 14 will be there too. So
I know Kirby likes the turf there. He likes measuring his players' metrics on the turf, and it's right up the road. It's a match made in heaven.
Yeah. And one of the things I think will be interesting is, let's say Georgia does everything it wants to do, 15-0 national champions. They will have played 20% of their games in one specific neutral site.
Wow.
And, it's kind of a weird little, thing that happens every now and then when you got a neutral site game. But, a lot of Mercedes-Benz stuff. And I actually love following games there because they got these little TVs in there for you. You're sitting there and you're looking for a replay, and it's usually about a good 8 or 9 seconds behind the play. You're picking it up. It's awesome.
You got a great soft serve machine too when it's up and running. Put on more than a few LBs covering Falcons games back in the day. Every other week it seemed like. Guys, when you mentioned the neutral site, Jake, before we wrap up here, we had a lot of Tennessee fans talking to us. We hope, we get that rematch against Georgia. I don't imagine that it would be in a semifinal game. Say Georgia wins out, they win the SEC championship. But I do wonder about this. Okay, normally we have this conversation and we'd say, look at last year. Georgia won't play Alabama in the SEC champion or the playoff semifinal right after the SEC championship, right? Because they don't want the same game back to back. Do y'all think that because there will have been more than a month between Tennessee and Georgia that the committee may be more inclined, if Tennessee makes it in as the 4 seed, and Georgia makes it in one way or another, do you think they would be inclined to not have that matchup?
No, I think they'd go for it 100%. I think that not only that, but the way they showed kind of the contrarian go at things with 1 versus 3 with that Georgia-Tennessee match on tap. I think the committee is probably, as this thing's about to get stretched out into 12 teams, I think the committee is about to do some kind of harsh reality, tough love type stuff that maybe keeps you do some things on purpose that maybe keep you from questioning the integrity of it going forward. And I think one of those things is, hey, we know that there was just a matchup played, but this was our 1 and this was our 4, and we stuck to it just for messaging's sake.
Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing I would add in there is I don't know that they're going to have much of a choice because with the way TCU's playing, I don't, and TCU already being ahead of Tennessee, I don't know that Tennessee is going to be able to do anything that would impress them enough to jump TCU. So yeah, I mean, it also wouldn't surprise me if they're trying to avoid having another SEC on SEC national championship game back-to-back years. that's probably not great for ratings. So, if you can guarantee an ACC team in, and if you can guarantee that they will not be playing an SEC team in the championship game, that feels like it's good for all parties and goes against what you were saying there, Jake, about them, maybe doing some things differently than they have before and doing them just because that's the way that they should be, way that they actually are, as opposed to, mixing some things up for the sake of scheduling and whatnot. But wouldn't surprise me if that was the case.
Well, at this point, there's only 2 outs. There's only 2 ways Tennessee doesn't get in. Oh, I mean, I guess the third would be a Tennessee loss of some sort.
Sure.
But USC and Clemson are
or a loser of the Ohio State Michigan game.
Yeah.
See, that's where the Big Ten can make it interesting.
I don't think it'll happen, but
I think it's got to be USC just winning the Pac-12 championship game, or Clemson doing the same just to kind of get national perception in there. I think I hate to say it for Vol fans, you might end up being the victim of some SEC fatigue this year.
Yeah, that could happen. I'm just interested in it, and we got into some really deep committee conspiracy theories there. I feel like I need to wear my tinfoil hat a little bit because we just don't know, and we're always thinking about the committee behind these closed doors. What are they thinking? What are they saying? Why are they pulling these strings here and there? And that's why they do it.
I heard they watch this show, as part of their research.
I think William Smith is on the committee.
Oh,
so yeah, that's the plot twist.
Sounds
there.
like Bill Smith. Is that his real name? Does he go by Bill? Bill Smith.
Well, a lot to talk about when it comes to the SEC championship, the playoff in the weeks ahead, and a lot to be determined still too, because that Final Four could look a lot different this Tuesday than it does by the end, as we all know very well. Y'all head on over to DawgsHQ.com. Sorry to say you missed out on the $1 for 1 year premium promo if you didn't hop on that, but the good news is it only went up $9. So you still got it. $10 now over at DawgsHQ.com. This show's free because y'all are hooking it up on the premium side of DawgsHQ.com with a lot more juicy details over there that we can't just give out like candy on this show. So y'all check it out. There's a link to it in this show's description, a link for BreakingT.com if you want to get the new t-shirt selection in time for the holidays, because you got to start doing that now. Don't forget to do that. Jake Palmer, I'm glad you made it back safely from Starkville. Now you got to hit the road.
You were right, by the way. You were totally right about Davis,
how it felt, how the stadium felt.
Yeah, I'd forgotten the specific comment, but the one about it being in the front yard of Fraternity House, or the backyard or whatever, that was.
I don't know why
totally
that was the image
on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally on the nose. But a little downtown area in Starkville wasn't bad. I was telling Palmer, we actually got the joy of experiencing 3 true SEC college towns all in the same weekend, because we stayed in Tuscaloosa, went out, got some dinner there, went to a bar, had a drink, got to go out a little bit downtown Starkville, and obviously you roll back into Athens on Sunday, you get to see the, kind of the beautiful classic city. So 3 real college towns, not like a Lexington, Kentucky, or
Austin,
Nashville.
Texas,
or even a Knoxville, Tennessee. I mean, I know that's where Tennessee's at, but that's also, there's a lot going on there other than football. So, but real deal college towns.
Don't throw too much shade on Lexington. Lexington's all right.
Yeah, it's just a bigger town. It's just a little bit bigger than what a college town normally is,
Yeah. Love the SEC. Some knowledge dropped on me too about Starkville, that Starkville and Tuscaloosa are the 2 closest SEC towns geographically, which I never would have known. And I haven't looked at a map to confirm it. So that could be fake news, but y'all check it out if you're that intrigued by it.
I've heard that before too.
Thank you for confirming that, Palmer. Thank you for watching the Georgia Show, listening on all the platforms. We have it on Apple, Spotify, you name it. replays there, replays here on YouTube. Y'all have a great week. We will talk again Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel to look ahead to the Cats because they looked ahead to Georgia and it bit them. See y'all then.